Hi, Honest Discussioner here. This is the second part of my response to a video by Epidemic 2020. If you haven't seen his video or my first part, the link is in the underbar and there might be some annotations floating around. Bit of a recap. Epidemic is interviewing Professor Stephen Straley of Christopher Newport University, who is the author of a Virginia statute that he claims reinforces the idea behind the First Amendment, but seeks to ensure that religious people are not relegated to the bottoms of society, as apparently he feels they are or on their way to. So far, Professor Straley's arguments and understanding of history have been lacking, to say the least. I'm picking up in the middle of the video now and continuing with Epidemic's questions. We start off with a bang here, where Epidemic asks Professor Straley if he believes the idea of separation of church and state is a way of bringing down and destroying the church. I'll give you one guess as to what he says. If you guessed yes, you'd be correct. Definitely so, in fact, to quote the professor. He likens the idea to the French Enlightenment and, of course, Nazis, who wanted to use this idea to implement their own belief system. The professor is, of course, failing to note that the Nazis did not have a separation of church and state. The state was rolling out its own red carpet to influence the church. That is decidedly not separation of church and state. You cannot tell me that an idea exists to destroy something, and that idea is to not influence it in any way. To reiterate, the idea of government controlling religion is not at all the same as separation of church and state. He then argues that religious people are underrepresented in the public arena. He, unsurprisingly at this point, fails to give any sort of justification for his assertion. What does he mean when he says public arena exactly? Politicians? They are mostly entirely Christian, or at least profess to be. I do not understand where he is getting the idea that Christians are underrepresented. The man must not be aware of Fox News. He then asserts that most people think the country was created to, quote, by, quote, certain founding fathers, and that we skipped the religious milieu, I think he said, that was so important to establishing our fundamental beliefs in this country. I think in reality Professor Straley is skipping over the founding fathers and cherry-picking certain areas of religious belief and then saying that was the foundation. If it was the foundation for the Constitution, why is it not in there? The idea in the constitutions are not religious in nature. Much can be attributed to philosopher John Locke, who was a Christian, but that does not mean his ideas of property rights were religious in nature. Even if they were, that does not mean we must give credence to religion. The Constitution stands on its own, and it gives no credence or special powers to religion. It takes a you leave us alone, we leave you alone stance, through and through. The next question is whether or not government should remain neutral in religious matters. My answer is yes. The professor's answer is interesting. He argues that no one is truly neutral. Okay, fair enough, but the question wasn't whether politicians should be neutral, but whether government should be neutral. Sure, government is run by people, but while you cannot eliminate bias on an individual level, that does not mean that you should, as a rule, allow government to get involved with religion or vice versa. A politician who believes their holy book says something is wrong is welcome to attempt to make a law to enforce that belief, so long as there is a secular purpose as well. You can't introduce a law to forbid businesses from operating on the Sabbath because the Bible says so. It's a simple concept. You cannot enforce rules based solely on religion, especially on those who do not adhere to that religion. This translates perfectly to abortion. People are welcome to fight against abortion because their holy book says it is wrong, but they will have to establish the fetus as a person if they are going to call it murder, and they will have to do it with something more than religious belief. If they do, then abortion should probably be considered murder. Let's not get into the abortion debate in this video. That was just an example. Let's stay on topic. Debate that in another video. The next thing he says is absolutely wonderful, though, that teaching Darwinian theory in classrooms is not neutral because it offends some people. The professor is forgetting that Darwinian theory is a fact, not a belief. We do not mandate people believe in evolution, but we do mandate that they are taught the facts about it. Whether or not people are comfortable with facts is another case. Now, the professor wants a public high school to teach facts about Christianity, as it is to describe what Christians believe. Not only am I okay with that, I would actively support such an endeavor, alongside teaching students about Judaism, Islam, Confucianism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. You are welcome to teach that Christians believe Jesus rose from the dead with public money. You just aren't allowed to teach that it is a fact that Jesus rose from the dead. And if you are comfortable with that being taught as a fact, then you'd better be comfortable with it being taught as a fact that Muhammad was the last and greatest prophet of God. After that, Epidemic asked Professor Straley whether mixing religion and politics might just breed war and social discontent. He states, in a way, all wars are caused by religion because wars are caused by ideals and ideals are caused by religion. He says it is a misnomer to blame religion for wars, and of course talks about how the atheist Nazi regime caused so much bloodshed along with the communists. If I'm sounding tired, I am sorry. I am a bit tired. I am disappointed to be hearing this from a professor. I'm not going to bother touching this one. Debate it in the comments section if you're sure. I'm sure about 10 of you are going to say what I was going to say anyway. Next, Epi asks him why religion has to be in the public square. Why not just a private relationship between an individual and God? Personally, I'm stumped on that one. The professor claims that people act in accordance with what they believe, so religion is inseparable from the public square. I don't see how that follows, unless public square is a euphemism for wearing on your sleeve. His terms are constantly vague. Again, what does he mean by public square? Now, Epidemic asks him how fair representation would go. Do you have to give equal time to each religion? Maybe I'm totally misreading him, but it sounds like he's arguing, no, just mine. He states that at his own university, a public university, mind you, they don't represent a lot of religions, including many of the most popular Christian denominations. I'd like to mention my entry-level religion class mentioned some of the ones his entire department doesn't cover. I don't understand how this is the case. His Rate My Professor review has one person commenting how he makes you want to learn about all religions. In all, his argument seems to be more about reducing the size of government to better emphasize the citizenry. I don't see how you need more religion in government and a smaller government at the same time. That's sort of like me saying I need to make your room twice as small and then move my stuff into it. Sounds like I'm just replacing you. Epidemic is sure in his own comment section that the professor does not want a theocracy, and I'm sure he doesn't say he wants one, but it does sort of sound like he does. The professor finishes up by stating that you can't represent everybody, and if you tried, you'd only wind up representing multiculturalism. How un-American. He says that if it's Hanukkah, you can put up a menorah, and you know, I'm fine with that, so long as the group puts it up at petitions ahead of time, and they also fund it themselves. The mayor of the town can't decide the town will celebrate a religious holiday with town funds. Believe me, religious people, you don't want that anyway. Christmas is the only religious federal holiday, and it doesn't really belong to Christians anymore, does it? We kind of took it back after that long period you stole it from the pagans. All in all, I'm quite disappointed in this professor. I don't know what the progress of the statute he wrote is, whether it is law or not, but I hope that if it isn't law, it never becomes law. I will link below the article that the professor wrote on the statute. It's quite a read. Have a nice day. Honest Discussioner, out.